So I put together my thoughts in this video about the recent commander bans, and the day that this is going live, actually, the huge news drop happened regarding the rules committee and what that's going to look like moving forward. That is not what this video is discussing, but I will be putting out a follow-up where I look into that and kind of put my thoughts together around that in a couple of days. So if that's of interest, please subscribe. In the meantime, let's talk about the ban philosophy in Commander and what that looks like moving forward. I think these thoughts still apply. So let's go. Today's video is brought to you by MagicJank.com, the online marketplace where you can buy and sell Magic the Gathering singles, sealed products, and more. Check it out today at MagicJank.com. What is up, everybody? Today I want to talk about the Commander ban list because a couple of new pieces actually just added to it, and it caused a huge stir. Honestly. And so if you're here to get kind of my take on the gossip around it, I'm happy to weigh in on that to a point. Really, the point being, don't make death threats. Don't be a dick. You gotta be a cool person, even to people you disagree with. That's just how this works. The world is a better place when people aren't dicks. All right, anyway, that aside. There were 4 cards that added to the Commander ban list. We had Jeweled Lotus, Nadu Winged Wisdom, Mana Crypt, and Dockside Extortionist. Now, with the exception of Nadu, those are all fast mana pieces. They're able to net you positive mana very, very quickly and allow an insane, super fast snowball win. You'll note that Soul Ring is pretty much matches all that description as well. The thing is, having a critical mass of them is definitely problematic. Well, so why ban them, though? You know, we have this question of, is the ban appropriate? Are these ban worthy? Well, let's talk about what a ban is and figure out kind of why, you know, get a baseline here. So a ban list is cultivated for various formats whenever a card is difficult to reasonably challenge. If a card is problematically good to the point where you either need to be playing it or playing some strategy specifically targeted to beat it. The reason for that is the gameplay becomes homogenous. And when the gameplay is homogenous, when you play the same game over and over and over and over and over again, it becomes less fun, and your desire to participate and compete will drop. As desire and demand for these formats dips, Wizards' profits also dip. And so, of course, fun game make money, make game fun. If you have a card that is going to make the game less fun to a very large amount of people, it's gotta go. It's very simple. And yes, money is the bottom line. It always is. It's not a hot take. If you want to leave a comment saying that, though, feel free. It helps the engagement, feeds the algorithm. So I'm here for that. So that's what a ban is. And so we have this question of, are these cards ban worthy? Well, Nadu Winged Wisdom is kind of an interesting case, so let's talk about that one first. Nadu is just an overstated monster that generates card value and ramp just way too fast, like way too fast. This was problematic to the point where it broke Modern, for goodness sake. So the idea of the Commander Rules Committee looking at this and saying this card sucks when it's at the table. If somebody has this, they're going to be able to create these indeterminate loops that just requires just them taking over the game time in order to resolve all their triggers, and it just becomes problematic and is generally a lousy gameplay experience. It's also a relatively new card. It's not worth a ton, so they just, you know what, guys? Let's not get used to this thing. It's a problem. Let's nip it in the bud, whatever. So honestly, that one, you can kind of agree or disagree, but I'm cool with that. I see no issue whatsoever. And actually, at the risk of burying the lead here, or at the risk of exposing the lead, I'm cool with all of these bans, completely and honestly, because the other pieces, these fast mana pieces that we see, Dockside Extortionist, Jeweled Lotus, and Mana Crypt, they all produce an insanely powerful advantage to the person who has them. You know, Dockside Extortionist is able to net positive 3+ mana as quickly as turn 2 or 3 in some pods without any issue. Like, it's really not hard. And the fact that it can be flickered, it can be recurred, and you can just generate even more value, and it can snowball out of control. To the point where, as I understand it, it's even a CEDH staple. And so even the competitive people who are trying to do the absolute best things in the game use that card. That's a good indicator that it's insanely busted. Of all the ones that have been banned here, it is actually the one that I have owned and I have played with before. And I gotta be honest, I took it out of all my decks. Like, I stopped using Dockside Extortionist simply because the few times that I played it, I genuinely felt like I was cheating. The amount of value you get is just simply far better than 2 mana. I mean, it's an exploit where I'm paying $1 and I'm getting $10 back. That's not fair. It's broken. It's like fundamentally broken, as in the game play balance doesn't exist if Dockside Extortionist is at the table. That player has an obscene advantage. And the rest of the players at that table are probably either digging for their Dockside Extortionists or pissed that they aren't the ones, in that seat. Is that a fun gameplay experience? Is that a gameplay experience that people will enjoy and want to participate in moving forward? In a lot of cases, no. Okay, so then all of a sudden, I feel like that ban makes sense. In the case of Jeweled Lotus, that card is stupid. It's like they took the most broken card that is banned in every single format where it could have been played, and it has become an iconic symbol of this game simply because of how fundamentally broken and problematic it is in Black Lotus. They took that card and just nerfed it slightly and just rolled it out and thought it would be fine. It's not fine. That card has never been acceptable. It has never been okay. I mean, a turn 1 Jeweled Lotus just creates a scenario where your busted super fast, commander is all of a sudden on the field before, turns before anybody else can hope to match pace. You get to a point where in a 100-card singleton format, people need to be running turn 1 removal in order to deal with those kinds of threats. Is that the kind of fun gameplay that you enjoy? Well, maybe, actually. But for me and a lot of other brewers like myself, if you have to move that fast, the amount of cards that are available to you that can be viable and win a game in those environments all of a sudden is significantly smaller than it would be if the game had room to breathe and time to develop. And so I completely and totally agree with the RC's decision to get rid of Jeweled Lotus. And same goes for Mana Crypt. That card's dumb. It makes no sense. It shouldn't be legal in the format. Should never have been legal in the format. Good riddance. I'm glad it's gone. Now, I have 2 other points that I want to get to. Actually, I have a lot on my mind on this one. I don't know if you can tell. So, I personally think these cards are good. I think this ban announcement is good. Now, my heart does go out to all the retailers and especially like the mom and pop, TCG local game stores who are trying to make ends meet and probably have these singles in inventory and have probably spent, a decent amount of money or at least a decent amount of store credit acquiring them so that their inventory would be valuable. Those inventories devalued dramatically. That sucks. Like, that is a huge problem. And I do see the issue there. And I'm sorry. Like, that absolutely, that is problematic. And we do have an issue here. And the issue that I see with that also coincides with another challenge, and that is CEDH versus casual EDH. CEDH being competitive EDH. I think it's kind of funny that the word we use for both is C, but the competitive folks just, took it over because, well, when it came to who was going to compete for who gets the C, of course, the competitive crew won. That makes sense. We need to stop and think about it. As a casual fan, yeah, they can have it. That's okay. But in any event, CEDH, competitive EDH, is an environment where people actually go to tournaments and there's actually prize support. So if you have one member of your friend group who has the really expensive decks and they understand the rules between draws, simultaneous kills, like conceding at instant speed and how that interacts with stuff on the board, that stuff comes into play in CEDH in a way that it rarely does in casual. And that's just a whole world in and of itself, to the point where we as the community have given it a separate label. Are you playing EDH or Commander, or are you playing CEDH? It's its own thing as far as the community is concerned. However, casual Commander, casual EDH, and CEDH are using the exact same ban list. And there, I think we run into a problem, because a lot of these cards are probably fine in CEDH. Whether or not Nadu is, appropriate in CEDH or not, I don't know. But I've seen plenty of CEDH players out there and plenty of comments talking about how it's overrated in competitive Commander. So that's interesting. Like, I don't know. Maybe it would be okay. The play pattern is still probably problematic, so you can have a discussion. The folks who are invested there could have that discussion. These fast mana pieces are oftentimes found at CEDH tables, and maybe it's considered problematic, but maybe it's not. As a casual fan, seeing a Mana Crypt or a Dockside Extortionist hit the field after my opponent said that they're running a mid-power deck, my immediate reaction is, bullshit. That is not a mid-power card. That is an extremely high-power card. If we're running a mid-power or a low-power game, all of those should never even be a consideration. And the ban list is a very clear message to everybody that this isn't okay in these casual pods. It really isn't. It is an unfair advantage. You are jumping out ahead in a way that is difficult to keep up with for most other cards out there, for most other players. So I am curious why the CEDH ban list is the same as the casual EDH ban list. Because we have a whole myriad of cards that have been socially ostracized from the casual pods. We have cards like Blood Moon or Winter Orb, Stasis, that are generally, Armageddon, of course. These cards are generally considered like poor form and just really off limits in casual pods. But in a CEDH environment where you're playing high power and the goal is to be cutthroat and go hard within the rules of the game, are these cards problematic? I don't know. I mean, honestly, cards like Blood Moon, I think, are actually really excellent as far as keeping track of maintaining kind of a board state if people are running really greedy mana bases. Whereas, in casual, it's miserable and it just punishes people who are trying to have a good time playing what is effectively a board game with their friends. And so I'm of the opinion that something like Blood Moon should probably be banned in casual. And same with Armageddon or a lot of these other very salty cards. They should probably be banned in casual, like completely and totally, right? If the whole goal is to make sure that the casual gameplay is fun for people, get them out of here. Meanwhile, as far as the competitive aspect is concerned, there are a lot of cards that are on the ban list today that I genuinely don't think would be threatening to the competitive environment at all. Like Iona, for example. It prevents people from playing spells of one certain color. The reason it's on the ban list is because if you're going up against little Timmy who's got a mono green stompy deck, and maybe it's their first commander, game in a casual environment, and you throw that down named green, they're just out of the game completely. Meanwhile, in a competitive environment, if you get the mana to be able to actually put Iona on the battlefield, and you get an opportunity to cut off a chunk of somebody's deck, like that could provide an interesting interplay between high-level combatants that I think should be allowed. And that's an example of just how these environments are so completely different. And cultivating a ban list that is going to meet the needs of one and, while trying to meet the needs of the other, you're going to have conflict. You absolutely will. It's inevitable. And so I think right now, the separation of these ban lists the separation of the ban list, I think, would ultimately be a good thing for everybody involved. And that would also, if the CEDH community deems that Mana Crypt and Jeweled Lotus are in bounds and perfectly acceptable within this side of the format, but they stop showing up at casual tables, then all of a sudden demand for these cards will then spike back up to some degree because somebody would still want them. And maybe some of that value would get recouped for the people who are trying to make money off these. So at the end of the day, bottom line, I don't know why these two different formats and these two different mentalities are trying to all fit under one roof. It doesn't seem to make sense to me. The community has already given them two separate names. We, as the players, see them as two separate entities. Why isn't that official? And for the record, as I'm saying this, I am not a CEDH player. I'm really not. I know there was some kind of drama recently around some entity claiming to be the CEDH RC. I have no idea who any of those people were, and I have no idea what their intentions were, whether or not things were okay or not. Apparently, it was a bit of a kerfuffle. I'm not talking about that at all, because genuinely, I don't know. I'm not invested in that. But as a casual Commander fan, I am invested in the health and well-being of the game that I enjoy. And I see a lot of people enjoying another game. Like, it's another game, guys. Like, it's practically its own thing. That's the bottom line. It's its own thing. And so I don't understand why they are being hurt because something is changing in my house, in the area that I enjoy. That's good. Like, Mana Crypt no longer showing up and allowing a 7-drop, commander to come down on turn 4 very consistently. That's a good thing. The game is going to slow down. We're not going to have somebody just, make it rain and just because they had a bigger wallet win the game. We're actually going to play the game of Magic. And the card pool that is available to us that is reasonable and has a chance to win is much larger as a result. I honestly think we could use way more bans in the casual Commander ban list and have a separate CEDH ban list where folks who are invested in that community, who know the format, know the gameplay, know what those people want. I'm not saying like those people, like CEDH is a cool thing and I'm really glad that it makes people happy. And someday I would like to dabble in it, but it hasn't been. There are so many different corners of so many different corners of Magic to dive into that I just haven't gotten to it yet. Someday I hope to, and I hope it's going to be fun and enjoyable when I get there. But right now, it sounds like there's tension, and I think that's a shame. And I also think the solution is probably relatively simple. Just because Commander has all been one thing up until now doesn't mean that needs to stay that way. As people's needs change and as the card pool grows, new formats get created all the time. I don't see why CEDH can't be a formal format that is seen. So if you have thoughts on this, please let me know in the comments below. Just because it's always been this way doesn't mean it has to be. Unless there's something I'm missing. Please, if there's something that I'm missing within this conversation, please don't hesitate to throw it out there. Rule 0 is another thing that I was kind of hoping to get to. There's also, of course, the Rule 0 consideration. Rule 0 is this idea that if you don't like the ban list as it stands or a particular rule, heck, even within the rules of Magic the Gathering itself, if you and all of the other players agree on it, you can change it. That's the joy of having a casual game that doesn't have prize structures or any of that jazz. With Rule 0, it's often used as this excuse for, oh, well, if the bans are a problem, or if this card is a problem, just Rule 0 it out at your table. But I find that forcing people to take cards out of their deck is very difficult. Meanwhile, if somebody's rolling up with a card that's on the ban list and they say, hey, does anyone have a problem if I run this? You know, if they just say, oh, I have this in my deck, is that a problem? Then somebody can say yes, in which case, like, okay, you can have that conversation. But oftentimes, if the card truly isn't problematic or wouldn't get on anyone's nerves, the player can very easily say, no, you're fine, and just run it out. And it's no big deal, you know? And I've been in plenty of those pods where banned cards have been like rolled in certain ways. You know, like I've played against Leovold, which is a banned commander. It was 3-on-1 and the Leovold deck won, but it was an interesting exercise and it was 4 people having fun with the understanding this is unfair and banned, but let's see what happens, guys. You know, and it was a fun time. We had a good time playing Magic together because we all came in with that understanding and we level set. A banned card was played at a commander table and no one was like freaked out or, there wasn't any gnashing of teeth and wailing of babies. It was fine. So if you have a high power play group that wants to continue playing with these cards, go for it. But if you're meeting up with people at conventions, if you're playing at local game stores with people who you genuinely don't know, I think a ban list is important. It's good. It's a good thing to keep the mid-power casual games mid-power and casual. Which in this world of power creep, that's tough, man. It's really tough. Yeah. So thank you for tolerating the ramble there. I had a lot of thoughts and a lot of feelings about this. Yeah. I want to give a huge shout out to my patrons. Thank you, everybody, for donating. You're amazing. And if you want to see more videos like this, please like and let me know down in the comments below. Yeah. Commentary like this is always fun. If you want more from me as far as just bantering is concerned, I stream over on Twitch, twitch.tv/hamhocks42. I'm over there Monday through Friday in the AM, starting around 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we just play Arena and talk smart a whole lot. So hopefully I'll see you out there. Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate you. I'll catch you on the next one.